Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Hey, lady love, welcome back to the potty and to this video and audio that is going to form some of the content inside the free mini course that I am currently building out for you, which is called True to You 2024 Goal and Vision Setting Mini Course. The way I'm designing this is it's going to guide you and help you do a year in review. So reflect on 2023 so that you can acknowledge and capture all of the pieces of gold that this year has held, but has also revealed to you about you, and then guide you in setting some goals and a vision for the new year that feels really aligned and like an authentic, real, raw, true expression of you based on what lights you up inside. The reason I want to bring this conversation of before setting your 2024 goals and vision is that we can be quite eager to just dive in, create this clean slate, forget about any of the accomplishments, even like what we have actually brilliantly created and birthed into this world in the year that has been, but also maybe some of the pieces that haven't felt so rewarding, yet hold such intelligent information about what would need to be shifted or tweaked or changed so that that thing that is actually probably deeply important to you in your heart can actually be brought to life and into your reality. I am a huge advocate for using, yes, looking into, our past in terms of our imprint years of 0 to 7 years old, and the patterns and coping mechanisms and strategies that were downloaded in that incredibly impressionable phase of our life, but also looking at what are our most recent behaviors and choices showing us? What are they revealing to us if we dig a little deeper beneath the surface, and how do we feel about that? It's very, very fucking useful information. And so this episode, I'm going to be walking you through a very practical exercise. I do this myself. I'm almost complete in doing this, walking through this myself for 2023, so that you can capture all these pieces that allow you to fully celebrate and acknowledge yourself for how far you've come, regardless of where that measures against where you thought you would be or what your idea of life might have been for this exact moment in time. And to also get really very real and vulnerable with the pieces that need to be looked at if change is going to happen. Some of what can come up around this is this feeling of like, oh, I just want to close that door, finish that year and start afresh. I can't wait for this chapter, inverted commas, to be closed, right? When the reality is the fact that we're heading into a fresh calendar year, that's not a powerful enough fact for things to just magically change in your life, right? We need to look at what is your relationship to the things that you want most in life. Where is there maybe resistance, a holding back, an avoidance, a procrastination, fear, self-doubt, a belief that maybe it's not for you, you're not good enough. Maybe that doesn't show up until you're really in like the crunch time moments of leaning into that goal or that vision for your life. So sometimes it feels like, oh no, like I think I've got this. And then that self-doubt and that fear surfaces again. It's really important that we're able to look at that if we want change going forwards. And yeah, the ticking over of a calendar year certainly is not enough to magically have that disappear. And when I was thinking about this before hitting record, this funny analogy popped into my head of when we're not prepared to look at, what are the results we've created? What is present within our reality, but also what is not, and what could be causing that to be the case, right? Because there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not a failure. There's not something wrong with you. You are absolutely lovable and you are absolutely good enough. We just need to look at, okay, what stage of development, what stage of evolution is your nervous system, your neurology, and your skill set at? And where are there some things to work on in that, which is not something to be ashamed of or labeled as bad. But when we don't look at that, it's almost like the rubbish bin is full and it's overflowing, and maybe it's getting a little bit smelly because it's trying to get our attention. It's not comfortable. It's not pleasant. And our strategy is, well, I'll just buy a new rubbish bin and put a clean liner in that bin. And isn't that new bin just like so beautiful and so lovely, and it has no bad smells, and there's so much space to put things in it. Only we'll get to the point by the end of the next year as well, where that bin, you're now going to have two bins full of smelly, unpleasurable, uncomfortable pieces of information or experiences or trash, whatever you want to call it, that still hasn't been dealt with, right? And so it's not a realistic or a sustainable strategy in this analogy of just buying a fresh bin every year. And then hoping that when you look the other way, somebody else will have emptied that for you or sorted that out for you, right? Your discomfort, your pain, the mess or the smelliness of the rubbish in this analogy, it's not there by mistake. It's actually there to teach because it holds lessons. And so whilst it might feel counterintuitive or counterproductive, going into that with the intention and purpose of finding the gold, finding the lessons, clarifying the patterns that are not working is actually single-handedly the most powerful thing you can do to have and create a year ahead that is deeply rewarding for you. In fact, I would suggest it's almost more important than sitting down and setting your goals, because if you start looking at that stuff and understanding it, the power in that, like to head towards anything that you want, is going to get the wheels of momentum happening. This is going to be a really practical conversation. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible, whilst also giving you some really like tangible, thorough examples from my own life. I'm going to share some of what's in real time has come up for me as I've moved through these questions. Because you're going to, if you join the mini course, you're going to have the full workbook that you can work through. The questions are there. So the video and the audio is supplementing that by explaining these questions a little bit, so that if you're looking at the question and feeling like, oh, I don't really know what that's asking, I don't really know what that means to me, you've got this resource as well. Straight up, one other thing I want to say is there is going to be a whole mix of different responses and reactions to these questions that come up within you individually. Some of them you'll have, some of them you won't. There might be the perfectionist piece that, wants to get this so right and do it so well that you'll never finish it because it'll never be good enough. And you'll always be looking for like, okay, there must be more, Where are the other answers? And continuously seeking. Or on the other end of that, it might be, well, I don't really have any answers to that, or I don't know what my answers would be, because if I don't present any answers with yourself, not to an audience, if I don't write anything down on the page, well, then I don't have to judge myself or feel uncertain or insecure about what that answer means about me, and if it means I'm not good enough versus perfect. There might be some avoidance, some procrastination, some wanting to race through this. My invitation is to tune in to what feels true to you, right? Because each year this might look different based on where your healing and growth is at. Some years it's going to be really important for you to do like the deep dive into this, right? And on some of these questions, you might spend more time. Whereas other years, it might be you might be really in flow. You hear your answers immediately. You don't need to do too much digging. You're really comfortable with where your life is at, and you're wanting to more so just consolidate things and leverage and continue on the trajectory you're already on. Amazing. So tune in, tune in. Before I get into these questions, the first part of this is if you set goals for this year, for 2023, pulling them out, whether that looks like a word or words that were like key themes that you wanted to lean into for this year, or if you actually wrote out some goals. So for me, I did both of those last year, or for this year rather. For 2023. So two of my key words, one of them was ground, where I really wanted to move into a new home, settle in a new location, build community and a lifestyle, which I've done, which feels amazing. And to really do that with an energetic of permanency, which I believe is a word, permanency. Might be wrong. I'm going to use it. As opposed to, oh yeah, this will do for now, or we'll just try this on. Like I really wanted to feel like I was putting down roots. And my other word was endurance, because towards the end of last year, I was able to detect like these echoes and threads of fear still around my relationship with my physical body and what would happen if I exerted myself beyond my comfort zone. And so this year, some of what that's looked like is I've done sweat lodges, which were very uncomfortable for me to do. They still are, and I will continue to do them. I'm planning on doing one in January. As well as my training, the intensity of my training and strength training. I've never trained at the height of intensity before in my life that I've trained this year. And I already have my heart open and my sights set on increasing that in different ways into the new year as well. And it's been phenomenal. It's expanded my edges, and it's like burst through boundaries that I didn't know whether or not were possible for me and my physical body. And a lot of that comes from, if you're a regular listener, you will know my history of, 5-10 years ago, like extreme chronic fatigue syndrome, being in a wheelchair, not being able to work, not being able to cook myself a meal. So that's what I want you to pull out. If you've got that, pull that out and just do a quick reflection piece. Like, where have I lent into this word or theme? Where have I maybe shied away from it? Where did I maybe not show up? Just take a temperature on that. And you might even like to rate it from 0 to 10. 10 being, I nailed this. And 0 being, okay. I'm realizing right now that I kind of forgot that this was something I wanted to focus on. Very, very helpful information regardless of your answer, right? And then if you've got the list of goals, put a tick or a cross beside, yes, this one was done. No, this one wasn't. Or maybe there's like a hyphen beside something that was partially complete. And again, do this as a reflection piece as well. Get curious as opposed to bringing in any game of, a narrative of self-judgment and self-shaming. And so I had 22 goals that I'd listed out. 15 of them have been achieved. And I'm just reading my journal here of the notes that I made. Every single other one, other than those 15, has been progressed forward. So that felt very fucking cool. And when things are not progressed forward, it's really, and this is the conversation we're bringing today, like, what's the lesson in that? Or what's caused that to be the case? Is it still important, or is it maybe something that is no longer relevant and I'm able to release that and let that go? So that's the first piece, is a quick little review of the actual tangible words and goals that you had written down for this year. Where we're going to move into next, you don't need to have set goals or to even know where they are for the remainder of this year in review exercise. It really is you connecting with yourself. And this can be quite an intimate and really beautiful experience too. You get to design what this looks like. I would suggest at least 10 to 15 minutes on each of these questions. You can set a timer, and you can do more than that if you wish as well. I this year have definitely done more than 10 to 15 minutes on each of these questions. So the first one that we're going to explore together is, what went well, felt exciting, or like solid consolidation? What went well, felt exciting, or felt like solid consolidation, right? This is an incredible way to acknowledge yourself and celebrate yourself, and to highlight and really shine a light on what felt good, what went well, yeah, regardless of what else might have gone on. You're still allowed to celebrate yourself. You're still allowed to acknowledge yourself, even if it looks different to what you thought it would, or even if that has been paired with as much or maybe even more hardship and difficulty and challenge. Right now, we're focusing on what went well, what felt exciting, and what felt like solid consolidation. Acknowledging this within yourself, this is actually a hugely energetic and an emotional experience moving through these questions in terms of what can come up, how the relationship with yourself can develop, what you can learn about yourself, what can be released, on an energetic level just through moving through these questions. So let me share a couple of mine with you. So what went well, felt exciting, or like solid consolidation? For me, moving into my own home here on the sunny coast. Yeah. So I had been most recently living in Brisbane with my dad, and I did not want to be living in a city. And I really wanted to be living, like, a goal that I had was to have the financial stability and provision to be able to live independently on my own. So no more share houses, and to not compromise on the home I chose by not having an office, or not having the space that I needed, or taking something that was really lacking in natural light and was quite dark, or that didn't feel safe. Right. So that's something that felt amazing. And like a really big milestone was moving into my own home that was a real fuck yes for me, and ticked the boxes of what I desired and where I was at in that stage of life, and continue to be right now. I had another moment. So we're just heading towards the end of I am heading towards the end of running a live round of my short course, Responding to Overwhelm, Fear, and Anxiety. And a couple of months back, when I was preparing to open the intake for that experience program course that's running right now, I was looking through the online course and just refreshing myself with the exact content that was in there and that was created, and all of the resources. And I just had this moment of feeling really proud and almost a little bit, I don't know that surprised is the right word, but I really enjoyed looking through that and being so stoked with the fucking quality and amount of value in that program. So that was a big moment for me, because as we move through some other of these questions, like challenges, I'll probably talk about that course in the challenges as well. So that felt like Something else that's gone really well this year, felt exciting and like solid consolidation, is time with my family. So the relationships with my family members have changed so much since I moved interstate, and I can't just rock around the corner or like see them whenever I please. And so that has actually brought in, for me, it feels like there's in some ways more depth and way more intention around my relationships with my family. I've also had more hard conversations with family members maybe this year than ever before. And the cool thing is they haven't been hard in terms of like, hey, this is a new boundary that I need to lean into and I need to have a conversation about it. It's more so been, oh, how can I let my family members see more of me that maybe is not their norm, or is not something they would necessarily agree with, or is not a choice or a lifestyle choice that they would genuinely make. But how can I let them and give them the opportunity to love me more, even though I'm different, right? So that black sheep kind of vibe, that's been really, really beautiful. As well as just being so much more present and spending so much more quality time with each of them, but especially my niece and nephews as well. So there's some examples. I came up with 37 things. They just rolled out when I worked through that. So, if it feels good, go big and name all the things that have gone well and have felt exciting and have lit you up inside, and that you've just like steadily progressed as well. So that's question 1. Question 2 is, what felt challenging or really stretched my capacity? Yeah, I had lots of answers to this question as well. I think I thought I wrote it down, but I don't think I did. I think I had maybe like 20 things that came up for this one. Yeah. What felt challenging or really stretched my capacity? So some examples, and before I jump into the examples, what I love about this question is it's going to help to reveal blind spots, because maybe when you tune in and you give this question space for answers to come up, you're going to hear things that perhaps at the time you didn't want to talk about, or you didn't have the courage to name, or life just went on. And so there was no space created to really acknowledge, hey, that was really hard for me. Or I wanted to be able to show up differently there and I wasn't able to. Or this thing really had me questioning who I am at my core, right? So it's going to help to reveal blind spots, and it's also going to help to show you where like a development or a refinement of skills is required, or where you need more tools in your toolkit to be able to realistically have a red hot crack at these goals and this vision that you're setting for the year ahead, as opposed to just, rolling on through across the calendar line of December to January with no intention, with no self-reflection, but expecting different results, right? So some examples. Something that really challenged and stretched my capacity for sure was when I relocated up here to the sunny coast. Loneliness and isolation. Yeah. And there were a few different components to that. Like, one was I didn't expect my business to need as much of me as what it did. I was onboarding a new team. I was also building a new course, that responding to overwhelm. And I tend to be quite the optimist in terms of time and experiences. And so I can sometimes underestimate what something is going to take. And with that building out of responding to overwhelm, especially with what I thought I would create, and then when I got into it and was super passionate about it and saw all these other ways that I could just add more value and wanted to bring that into it as well, that began to expand it out a little bit. But definitely the loneliness and isolation and also the consecutive moves. Like I moved from Melbourne to Byron, and that was a move that was with the vision of it being permanent. And then the floods came through and I needed to move on, so it couldn't be. And I didn't know where I wanted to go. So I landed in Brisbane, which was never going to be permanent, but I didn't want to move on until I had more clarity and was intuitively clear on where to next. And so there was this in-between phase there, but not short. I was there for, I think, 9 months before coming up here. And so it felt like this, okay, we're building community. Psych. No, we're not. Okay, we're building community, but it's not going to be permanent. Yeah, it's shorter term. And then again, for a third time, okay, we're building community. And so there was some like mental, emotional fatigue in that of, oh my gosh, like again, the effort and even just the logistics of like, where is the gym I want to go to, or the yoga studio, or the dance group, or whatever it might be, sourcing those locations before even showing up to them. So that was definitely something that stretched my capacity. Also, deeply craving partnership and feeling like, and probably moving into this home as well, like my highest ideal would have been that I was doing that in partnership. And so there was also some grief to be felt mixed in with that of, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. I've created this for myself. And I've created this for myself whilst building a business from scratch that's an expression of my heart. And I would also love to be sharing this with somebody and celebrating it with somebody and creating it with somebody. And so there was a lot of, particularly in the first half of this year, I would say like loneliness and isolation around wanting partnership as well. Another example is I had to make some really hard calls with my team and change things. I had to change the direction. I had to change my mind. Because if I didn't, I would have been rejecting or suppressing my intuitive hits and what was true for me and where I could feel the rhythm of the business needed to go. And so that was really challenging to make some changes within the team that support me. Distance from my family was really hard, especially when I didn't have a lot of much at all existing community here. And so that gap of not having my family felt even bigger. And, Dad was in Brisbane, which is amazing. But like each time I would travel down there to spend a weekend, I was not physically present here to build the community that was lacking, that was creating the isolation. And so these were just some of, like I said, many. There was probably about 20 different dot points that I had to answer this question. And something that might feel helpful for you, and definitely was for me, on probably 3 or 4 of the dot points that came up for me, like the major ones, I did like some quick short journaling around that and it just like, I could feel it releasing more as I understood more of it because some time had passed. And so I was able to look at it from different perspectives. So that might be useful for this question too. Number 3. Yeah. What was unexpected? So 1 and 2 are probably going to be, more of the lengthier answers. And then these on flowing ones that we're going through now might be a bit more short and snappy for you. So number 3, what was unexpected? Both painful, but also pleasurable. Yeah. So I already shared one example for me, like that building out of responding to overwhelm, fear and anxiety course. I didn't expect it to need so much from me. And part of that's very general language. I'll give you an example. So it required me to be at home with lighting, with the mic plugged in a aesthetically pleasing setting, but also a quiet space because of all the filming and the recording and the putting together of videos and audios and all of the guided practices for the women. And so again, that fed into the isolation of like, I couldn't go and do that from a cafe or from the library or really even from a friend's place, which meant I was spending a lot of hours during my week at home, solo, head down, bum up, producing that content. So that was more of a painful one, that was unexpected. A pleasurable one that was unexpected. This year was easily my favorite birthday ever. Like, I just felt so fucking happy, so content, so joyful with the most simple pleasures, surrounded by incredible community and friends and family. And I just felt so celebrated and loved by the people outside of me, um, as well as this deep just acceptance for exactly where every single thing in my life is, that it is exactly where it's meant to be, but not like an acceptance of like an, okay, then, like, I guess so. Instead, this deep resonance and appreciation and ability to connect to the intimacy and the beauty of that. And so if you follow me on Instagram, you've maybe even seen me share a bit about this, where I've said I'm almost even amused by the depth of contentment and happiness and joy, even though there are still some pieces to life that I deeply, deeply desire and crave, right? So partnership, and motherhood are examples of that, and parenting. And yet I am just so fucking happy and content with exactly how my life is right now. And the trust that I have in that those things are just going to unfold. Like, it's just undeniable to me, which is a very sharp contrast to what I shared about the start of the year, where I was feeling deeply challenged by desiring that, but feeling more, I would say the feeling was more around like confusion or resentment or frustration of, why is this not here? So that was definitely an unexpected pleasure. I wasn't expecting to to not enjoy my birthday or stage of life, but just like the purity and the intensity of contentment and inner calm and peace is like off the charts and like nothing I've ever experienced before. So that would be a pleasurable, unexpected thing that I've gotten to experience this year. Yeah. Number 4, what do I want to repeat or take with me into 2024? This question is going to start to inform your goals. So rather than sitting there having to think like, all right, like, what's the goal? And like, how do I say it? And like, how do I make it specific? This is more of this like free flowing expression of just like almost like throwing ideas out there of like, well, what do I want to have happen again? And what do I want to, what was great this year that I want to carry with me into next year as well, right? So some examples for me: the stability of my home and lifestyle. I'm loving that for the first time in a very fucking long time. I'm not going to be putting time and energy into relocating into a new state or a new area. That just gets to keep humming along. That feels so good to me, as well as continuing to like furnish out my home in a way that feels really pleasurable. So this is a space that I love being, and I love having visitors or hosting and inviting people into my home. My friendships was one of the first answers that came up to question 1. But also here as well, the depth and the intimacy and the vulnerability and the connection and the reliability and just the feeling of how known I am, but also seeing my friends receive that knownness from me to them in themselves as well has just been incredible. And so that's been a reward of me continuing to deepen into my own healing and growth, because then I can go to the depths that these beautiful people are at as well. as well as new community and continuing to expand that, continuing to reach out when I come across people or see people that I feel like could be a fun connection. Yeah, that's definitely something I want to take with me and repeat. The podcast is staying. We're taking that into 2024. Reveal and Rise, 100% without a doubt, is absolutely staying. That space fucking lights up my life. The women in there and the relationships they build and how they love and support each other and lift each other up, and how one of them will share vulnerably, and that will totally unlock a piece for another woman who will then share vulnerably about something else because she's understood herself more, that then opens a door for another woman. And it's just one of my favorite fucking moments every single week, joining those calls and leading those calls. That's definitely staying. Overseas travel, definitely big tick. That was one of the things that I loved most and was definitely a highlight from this year. Intuitive living, open-hearted living, like a non-negotiable. That's absolutely being repeated and staying with me, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, even when it feels risky, even when it feels very vulnerable and exposing. It's how I live my life. It's staying. So that's question 4. Question 5, what do I want to let go of? Yeah, this is also going to help in informing your goals. Interestingly for me, what do I want to let go of? An answer that came up for me was singular focuses. So I felt like this year in 2023 for me, there was a lot of, okay, we are all in on this focus right now. And the short course of Building Responding to Overwhelm was an example of that, right? Whilst that was happening, it was not really very possible for me to travel or to be, like I shared, super social throughout the week. And so then comes, I think it would have been, late September through to mid-November, and I was nonstop traveling. I went from Byron and Brisbane to Bali, back to Brisbane, to back home to the sunny coast, to Melbourne, to the surf coast in Victoria, back to Melbourne, back to this, and it was just nonstop. And what I could sense and tell undeniably is that if those things could have just been, woven together and blended together and spread out a little bit and a little bit more spacious, it would have been way more enjoyable. Like if Bali and Melbourne were not back to back, that would have been amazing for me. And so, to the best of my ability, bringing more intention to that, because I want to let go of the singular focus. Something else I want to let go of is the peaks and troughs in revenue. Yeah. So this is something that is going to be, if not my biggest focus in business next year, one of is, now that I have all of these offerings set up of, one-to-one private coaching, Reveal and Rise, intimate, long-term, small group coaching, responding to overwhelm, like self-paced, do it yourself, immediate content, great to sink your teeth into straight away, regardless of where you're at. Now that all that's built out, I get to focus on actually, okay, how do I reach more women? How do I speak to more women? How do I help more women? I don't need to focus on the building and the creating so much. So systemizing back ends, and being able to, kind of fits into the singular focus as well, like plan more in terms of when different offerings are available, and all of those things. That just feels so exciting to me, because it's stressful. Like there's an underlying stress, and it has expanded my nervous system beautifully, but it is stressful when there might be really big months of revenue and they cover far beyond that month in terms of the expenses in the business and my living expenses, and then top up all of, my different accounts. but then there's not consistency to that. And so then it's like, feels like a little bit of playing catch up. So I'm really excited to focus on that. In terms of using the language of this question, I'm excited to let go of peaks and troughs in revenue, and also continue releasing and letting go any gripping and any rigidity of this is how life has to go. This is how it was meant to look. Yeah. If I'm being shown otherwise in a really true, intuitive, attuned way, letting that be okay. Yeah. Which I feel is something I'm really proud of. I feel like that is something I find really quite easy at this stage of my life, definitely not in the past. But I want to continue to just let go of more and more of that gripping and any rigidity, even just like the echoes of it or just the tiny threads of it that I find, for sure. And number 6, what are the learnings I'm taking and leveraging in 2024? Yeah, what are the lessons? What have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about life? Now, it might be really useful to go back to your answers rather, from question 1 and 2 and see what they bring up for you. So I'm going to just scroll back up and do that with you right now in live time. So one of the things that I shared that went well, felt exciting, was moving into my own home. So a lesson that I took from that is how important aligned compromises are in life. Yeah. How important it was for me, yet again, multiple times in having my business, I've done this where I've put my immediate gratification version of my lifestyle on hold. Yeah. Moved in with family. And in this instance, lived in a city when I did not want to be living in a city, because the long-term vision required that. And I can hand on heart say I wouldn't be in this financial position and have moved into my own home if I hadn't have made that aligned compromise. So a lesson that I can leverage is I've got great evidence of how important aligned compromises are and that they don't last forever. When there's a good strategy, a good plan, I'm looking at any inner emotional, subconscious patterns that could create resistance or get in the way around that. It's only a matter of time before I have both. I have the thing that I'm working towards, and I have the thing that I'm also compromising on right now. So that's an example of that. An example of the lesson that I could take from one of the challenges I shared. So maybe distance from family was a challenge that I shared. How important it is for me to prioritize quality time. And so how important it is for me at the start of the year to sit down and map out, like, where is that going to fit? And where is that going to fit in a way that I don't have to do it as a singular focus where it's like, oh, I have to get all of this work out of the way because it can't happen simultaneous to me being present with family. Now, there's times where that will be true and factual. This year it was. That doesn't mean that I can't take the lesson and the learning from how I felt during that and what I didn't like about it and how I wanted it to look instead. Take that lesson, leverage it, and create a different experience in 2024. Yeah, there are a couple of examples for you. And I just want to give you a bonus reflective question here, which is like such a fucking powerful one you could ask yourself at any time of the year. Yeah. Where do I dictate to myself in my life? Or where am I dictating to myself in my life? And what I mean by that is, where am I saying, you must be like this, you can't be like this, why haven't you done it this way? Why aren't you doing it faster? Why are you so slow? Why did you say that? Why did you show up in this way? That shouldn't be happening. This isn't for me. This is unfair. They shouldn't be behaving in that way. It should be easier for me. Yeah. It's harder for them. Yeah. This is bullshit. These are some of the ways that we can be dictating to ourselves, but also life. And we can exchange that word of life with God, universe, source, life force, whatever it is for you, where we're believing that we are the greatest of all things and we know all things, and it's ego. Yeah. And it's a desire to control, to feel safe. Right? It's trying to make sense of the limited information that we're consciously aware of and denying and pushing aside the fact that there is so much happening around us energetically and otherwise that we're not aware of, right? And that there is an energetic on our team that we are co-creating with, and it is going to have pieces of information that we don't yet have. And how can we lean in and ask bigger questions like, what could this be showing me? What could this be here to teach me? What could this be preparing me for? Because right now, my nervous system, my neurology, and my skill set, it's not ready. But when I move through this hard, difficult, challenging, uncomfortable thing, my nervous system, neurology, and skill set is becoming closer, or is becoming ready. I'm going to close this conversation here. Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.